Well, hi class, I hate to do this again, back to back. You guys did this version of learning on Tuesday and now here it is Thursday, but my daughter is still very much sick and we have this capability after e-learning days. This is a piece of cake to be able to record and get you what you need. So you should be wrapping up your posters today. If we think about where we've been, and I know this is repetitive, but maybe some of you have missed this. We started with an edited background. Great. You've got a feature image, whether that's the entrepreneur themselves, a product, or the current CEO. What I would caution you on is placements. Like so here, you can see that how the photo was taken. Martha Stewart's waist was cut off. So if I had her just floating like this, that would look really awkward. So that's why I tucked her at the bottom for ideal coverage. What I've noticed in the other class, sometimes a shoulder would be cut off. So let's say Martha's shoulder was cut off right here. I could hide that by bringing it over to the side. So that's one thing I noticed. Your 3 to 5 facts that you worked on the other day, I saw a few things that were popping up that were red flags in the other class. Just the simple act of center aligning goes such a long way. Versus left aligning looks a little bit jagged. Center aligning looks refined, and so does justified. Justified alignment is that far one on the right. It's actually what newspapers and magazines use a lot, so it's flush on the left and the right. I just want it to look sharp. One more thing that we talked about in the other class that I wanted to mention to you guys. This is a text box with no fill and no line. The no line thing is pretty obvious. You get rid of the line and it doesn't have a border. But maybe if your background is too busy, you could fill it a color. So for example, if I filled this color. Obviously that's kind of an eyesore at this point. Perhaps I could change that by making my words white. And that pops, but now it just kind of looks like a blob right there. And so now this is a lot of steps, so just follow along carefully. If I've got it filled, I can it's fighting with all the objects here. I can right click on my shape. At the very bottom, there's a format shape feature. That's going to bring up a little sidebar. I would expand down fill. I'd still leave it that color, but I can mess with the transparency. And it just gives it I don't know, I think it gives your poster more depth, especially if it's on a busy background. Don't feel like you have to do that. Like if yours is high contrast to begin with, that's fine. I'm just trying to combat some busy backgrounds and how that works. So what's left? You should have your little, and I forget if I told you guys this, you should have a little text box, a tiny one that says research conducted by, and then your first and last name. And that's basically like showing that you did the research, and it's covering plagiarism, I guess, is my opinion. Because if we'd put URLs on this webpage or on this quick read poster, I think it would get to be kind of messy. But if we just say that you conducted the research, that's going to be kind of my way of covering our bases that way. So again, it can be a text box. As far as placement, you can decide where it looks the best. I also want you to have a logo. With this business logo, I think if I make it a little bit larger and I overlap it with that filled text box, it kind of looks intentional versus so PC. Logos, if you already have your logo as say part of the background or it's part of your feature image, you wouldn't need it on there. I would do the cardboard cutout. So for example, if I remove background, like originally mine started a little bit differently. So removing the background I think gives it a good look. Be careful to make sure you find the most current logo. Like I'll use Starbucks. I know, Lakaya, you're studying Starbucks. Starbucks logo has changed dramatically since its inception. And so you're going to want to try to find the most current logo because that's where brand association, like we see that logo and we associate with it, that brand. So just find the current logo. Finally, the last thing I want you guys working on today is kind of finishing out your poster as far as telling us who. So the company or you know, the founder. If it's not the founder, so for example, if you were doing John Deere and you didn't feature John Deere's picture here, you could get by with John Deere up here, or you could find whoever's the current CEO, put their name, and then add another little text box, kind of like what you did with the research conducted by Jennifer Mars, and just say current CEO or something along those lines. So as far as how to do word art, you guys are going to probably remember this from 7th grade, but I still want to just remind you anyway. I'm going to do a new document just so I can start from scratch. You could do the same thing, or you could just put your word art on your poster, but you'd go to Insert, and way over here, it's not a very pronounced button, you'd go to Word Art, and you'd find something you like. Now you'll notice if I go back to my Martha Stewart poster, the options that I have there are nothing like what the options are here. And so what you need to know is you can customize it quite a bit. So for example, if I come in here and do this one, if I type Martha, I would suggest your word art being individual. So Martha and Stewart, John and Deere, putting them in separate word arts because you're going to be able to tuck them better. So if I go back here, you'll see, like, if I grab Stewart, I even, you know, I can move Stewart wherever I like. By, you know, if you notice where the H is of Martha and that little T's chimney, if you will, I'm getting it as nudged in there as I can. I could also put it here in between the H and the T. I just like to nudge it. And had you had Martha Stewart all in one word art, you wouldn't have that nudging capability. So a little bit more about word art. You would think if I'd pull from the corners, it's going to make Martha bigger, and that only gets the placeholder bigger. For you to actually go in and change word art, there's features right in here. So notice I'm under Drawing Tools, Format. You know, if I want to change the fill color, I could do that. If I choose the different border color, I could do that. And there's all sorts of different transformations that you can do. You can add shadows, you can add reflections, you can add glows, bevels, 3D, and even like shape transformations. Just know that each of them have more options hiding. So for example, under shadow, I could go down to shadow options and have even more options than just the standard default ones. It's kind of fun to play around with them because you can get a real funky look here in just a matter of minutes. To change fonts, though, you would have to go back home, switch up a font to something you like, make it bigger, and as you make it bigger, it may exceed its borders, as noted here, but then I would just pull to make it larger. I don't think I'm digging that black border. I might just take the border off. And if I want to make my shadow a little bit less gray, I could just soften it by messing with the transparency. I know this seems weird, but I might do a white border. It just gives it a real clean look. You can, at this point, do one of two things. I could copy my Martha and paste it. So then I would just change this to Stewart. Or I could have completely started over by going to Insert, Word Art, and starting over. I could just maybe make it a little bit smaller and find a good place to tuck. There looks like an obvious one. Maybe on my second one, I could change the color just to give it a little bit more depth. And that looks great. The reason it's mad at me is because I didn't capitalize Stewart, but I did that intentionally so the S would be smaller. And it's still mad at me, so I'm going to try ignoring that till it's gone. There we go. If I go back to my poster here, you'll notice I have those shapes that are kind of tying together my words and my picture, and that's just simply using shapes by going to insert shapes, and all I did was just bands of rectangles through there. Maybe I fill in that color. I do no outline. I right click and send behind text, and all of a sudden it's got a really bold look in just a matter of a couple clicks. Kind of like what I did with that text box. I could right click, format shape, still keep it that fill, but mess with the transparency. Now here's where things get kind of like magical and play on the eye. I could copy and paste and let those two intersect. Now they're both transparently filled at 31%, but when I hover over them, it would have, or give them a shade, it gives it a look of more depth, and I think that looks really cool, especially when I've got that real subtle white word art border there. So I hope that makes sense. You are not my Friday class, so I won't see you tomorrow. So I won't see you guys till next Tuesday. What I'd like you to do is let's just wait to submit it. That way, when I see you on Tuesday, I can take a quick peek at all your posters and just give you a little bit of a quick constructive criticism. Here's what looks great. Here's what I'd quickly change. Then we're going to convert it to a PDF, and then we'll start our printing process, because if you recall, I'm going to hang them in the hallway. So I hope this helped. I apologize about being gone, but you know what? Recording a lecture right from my kitchen table as my daughter tries to get better is easy, because we've done e-learning for so many days. So what's another day? And then I can at least show you and talk to you over the computer. So have a great rest of your Thursday. See you.